Hey, good morning, everybody. Two different weather patterns. It is the summer season after all. And down here in Texas, we can have crystal clear blue skies, beautiful summer days, but it can also change on a whim. It's storm season in these parts, and the storms can come out of nowhere. And that's really an analogy for the resin market. If you're a resin buyer, which summer day describes your situation is really determined on what you need to know here before this coming Friday. A quick setup here, the surge in crude oil pricing almost to $10 a barrel on the escalating US-Iran conflict in the Strait of Hormuz being reblockaded. Benzene is starting to rise on the spot basis. There are four markets right now with clear blue sky buyer opportunities. There are five other polymers that just got a weather advisory if you're looking at the radar. So let's break it all down here. Starting with where the seas are relatively calm, polyethylene, polypropylene, PVC, and PET are those materials. The common thread are elevated inventory levels, no meaningful July price increase initiatives, and overall big picture supply data that confirms lack of pull through in the market and continued buyer leverage. Let's go market by market. We did see a third straight inventory build in polyethylene in the month of June, which certainly indicates a market that is oversupplied. The July expectation is that we'll see a 10 cent a pound decline on top of what we saw in June. The feedstocks from a WTI perspective did move higher on geopolitical news, but let's remember that the advantage we have here in North America is that ethylene is derived from natural gas and the shale gas. Ethylene is flat, slightly down actually, and there is no polyethylene cost support from the upstream feedstock perspective. There is new Gulf Coast capacity coming online, which, although will be export oriented, is not going to tighten domestic supply. And there are no increases announced in July. So the move in polyethylene is to push for concessions. The supply demand math gives you cover to be quite direct in that ask. Now in polypropylene, we did see some movement in PGP spikes. We're of the opinion that that is noise and not a signal. We did see a modest inventory draw in June, but the market remains well supplied with demand being lackluster. We did see feedstock units, one of the PDH units that makes on-purpose polypropylene come offline, and some maintenance plan for another outfit that drove spot PGP prices up, from the 40 cent a pound level up to as high as 47 cents a pound, with the polymer turnarounds at Phillips 66 extending into July and potentially August. We're starting to see production events being talked about a little bit more in this space, and those are not demand recovery. So your supplier is likely to lead with those outages as a talking point. The important thing to keep in mind is we need to negotiate now before these events become the center of your supplier's argument. We may see an uptick in PGP settlement price, when polypropylene may follow it in July if we continue to see escalation in the conflict. In PVC and PET, the conditions are clear, but the risk profiles are a little different. PVC, we did see another inventory build, and in the summer months, with days of supply approaching 20, that is not common during peak construction season, which indicates demand rates that are poor. Exports have been down sharply, and the housing market can't seem to absorb what is in the supply channel, even when we're, really in the midst of that season where we're going to do that. No July increases. The buyer leverage is pretty firm and structural in that category. PET, July is expected to come down on lower feedstock costs. World Cup is wrapping up here. Seasonal beverage demand has been supporting volume, but not reversing the price direction. There is some hurricane risk as we move into the heart of that season, as the PET domestic supply is concentrated in the Gulf Coast. So if you need to act on open volume, consider coverage through the Q3 timeline. Okay, so now that's where the waters are relatively calm. Let's talk about the five markets where, there's severe thunderstorm warnings, if you will. To use what's common here in Texas and what matters right now. So again, we've talked about this, but with crude oil, the benzene connection, Benzene is a oil derivative, follows the market quite closely. A polystyrene ABS, polycarbonate, 6,6 and 6 nylons, so the polyamides, all share benzene linked feedstock cost structures. And so what we saw was WTI moving from 72 to almost 79 a barrel, with benzene following from the 430s up to the 480s. The important thing to keep in mind here is July benzene contracts are already settled. It's an August story. But if you're negotiating these resins and you wait for August, the data might not be in your favor in the same way, given the trajectory of this conflict. So that's the important big picture thing to keep in mind. Polystyrene contracts were down in June, which we're expected to see pull through in July polystyrene contracts. With what I just mentioned with benzene spot pricing firming, it puts August back on the table for an increase. There is a plant closure, Styrolution Shahananon closure, over 400,000 metric tons. That's a permanent closure, and that's indicative of the producer economics, not necessarily a short-term supply event. In polystyrene, you're going to want to complete July pricing discussions here ASAP. ABS, no July initiatives. July feedstocks are supportive of contract settlements here. The benzene wildcard is real here as well. If it holds or continues to climb, Q3 relief is going to be extended out to Q4. There is quite a bit of material on ABS in the supply chain. If you can capture concessions now, do so. In polycarbonate, the July benzene contract settled below June, flat to slightly down. Pricing is expected in polycarbonate. It's the same midweek benzene caveat, though. So August exposures out there. China and Europe are both under downward pricing pressure. Move in July if you have Q3 needs that are still open here. The nylon window is there in 6.6. Benzene and butadiene contracts move lower, which ordinarily would support weaker pricing. But with the firmness in benzene this week, the market's expected to roll flat. Celanese has capacity coming offline, which is a longer term story again, not necessarily a near term tightening of the market. It's really important to challenge rolled over June pricing. The July feedstock data is starting to go against you here. In nylon 6, we monitor caprolactam, which dropped sharply in the last little bit here with significant reduction in upstream cost pressures. Suppliers are expected to carry forward pricing initiatives, the ones that were out there prior. There's nothing new on the table for July. I wouldn't accept any carried forward pricing. The feedstock math is starting to come back in your favor in nylon 6. So how to use this data? Again, there's the two clear pathways in the clear sky markets. Go indirect, the data's on your side. You frame it in terms of the position in the market. No announced increases. What can you do for me? And don't wait for conditions to improve before acting. In the storm advised markets, it's important to lead with the July contract settlement. Don't let your supplier anchor to this week's spot prices. Those are, not in your favor, but they're also not indicative of what the July contracts are looking like. So that's more of an August question. Last thing I want to mention, on Wednesday, July 22nd, we do have a live info session that we're putting on with the Plastics News. Stop negotiating blind. For anybody that's a buyer of resin, should be a great conversation around, practical applications to, your procurement initiative, how you can get better every day, what to expect, a live market discussion, buyer strategy Q&A. Bill Bowie, our owner and co-founder, and Tyler Wheeler and I will be there to walk you through what we're seeing in the market and what you should do about it. To register at the Plastics News, we are going to drop a link in the chat here. So just remember, in closing, we've got two kinds of summer days, two different clocks, two different weather forecasts. It's important to act while the sun is still out, like it is here today in Dallas. So everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers. Purchase wisely.